Okay, I'm Ed Perkins, and this is Sassafras Farm, and we've been here farming for some 40 years. And it's been a long, long haul, and we're still going and still learning every year. Every year is new, every year is fresh, every year is a new beginning. And that's what I like about farming. I'm sure it gets tiresome sometimes, but you look forward to next year. And this year I'm going to get it right. That's what I say every year. This is about winter gardening, planting stuff to grow in the winter, and if you want stuff to grow in the winter, you've got to be planting it last week. If you want stuff later, you plant it later. If you want stuff earlier, plant it earlier. And every place is different, so it probably doesn't mean anything anyway. Lettuce is my big crop here, and I'm selling at the farmer's market. This is my method, just loose in a flat. I don't use cells packs. I buy my potting soil from a guy at the farmer's market. You can buy it in any garden store. This is not an organic mix.
Right.
I have tried making my own mix. I get weeds and I get damping off, fungus disease. Plant a whole flat, dies. It just isn't worth it for me. I depend on a regular supply of starts, and they gotta be live starts, not dead ones. If you could sterilize your potting soil, you might work. You can try it.
Steam.
Steam it if you have a way to.
Can you just stick it in the oven?
You could. The volume I use is way too much for me to bother with. I am not actually going to plant everything now because I don't need anything planted now. Imagine seeds. And when you first do this, you will put way too many seeds in. But it's better to have too many than not enough. And then I close it up.
How many of those do you put together in the spring, for instance?
Hundreds.
Wow.
I pack it down a little bit.
Does thinning break your heart? Do you try and transplant?
No, I'm just ruthless.
Yeah.
Water
I
again.
have trouble with that.
And I put this to keep it moist. And now, this time of year, I just stick it in the barn because it's not cold. If it's in the spring when I'm doing this, this has to be done in the house. So, they have germinated. Ta-da! Instant germination.
Magic.
And then I sit here and I do this.
Specialized tool.
And sometimes there's a vacant space and I need to put a seedling there.
Oh.
Until it looks like that, I got the spacing I
Oh,
want.
I see.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
Even when they're that little?
You don't want to wait till they get too big, and then
Yeah.
the thinning and transplanting is a lot more difficult. This is lettuce.
Are you looking at like 1 inch between the plants, or is there a rule of thumb?
But
Okay.
it depends on how many plants you want. You know, I'm planting hundreds of plants. If you just have a backyard garden, you only need a few. This is too many.
Yeah.
You can put several different things in here. This is the winter planting. Right now is going into the tents, our hoop houses. I grow this stuff all year. I start planting in the spring and I plant every 2 weeks like this to keep my continuous supply going. How many of you are seriously interested in doing this, and what is your objective?
We have food deserts in Ross County, and it's the most absurd thing ever because we have all this land. So you go to other places and you see the most valuable asset that people are clamoring for is land, and we've got it everywhere. People have their cars and their kids' cars. You know, there's a lawn full of cars that don't run, and it takes up space. We're just trying to do this from an education standpoint.
You're trying to teach people how to do stuff
Absolutely,
like this?
and tie it into nutrition, yeah.
Well-
We're from the Roten Alternative School.
Do you have a hoop house you want to plant this winter?
We have a panelized greenhouse, and we've got a hoop house on the way.
You want to get it planted this winter?
We've got everything started to do that.
Is
Yeah.
everybody here growing for winter or have planning to?
I put some lettuce seed in my garden, but I just put seed in the ground. And I was thinking about doing like a low tunnel,
Okay. You
but
can do
it
that.
is like a community garden, so I figured either way I'll get like some stuff.
Well, I'll try to show
But,
all levels. If you just want a small little patch, I can show you how to do that, and then we got bigger things.
Okay.
That's good.
Direct planting like this is the most effective and reliable way. You can direct seed. Starting in plants is best, or some things do not work this way, like spinach. You have to direct seed anyway.
Why is that?
Spinach doesn't transplant well.
Oh, really?
I've tried transplanting spinach before, and
My experience with spinach, transplanted spinach is it bolts almost,
yeah, and it
As soon as it
somehow
gets established.
it stunts it and it says, okay, I'm going to bolt right away.
yeah. Garden centers continue to sell it, but
They
I
sell
don't know
spinach in pots, don't they?
yeah,
They do.
they do. But
Well, they should come back for more every day.
I guess that's the
You might as well
strategy.
eat it.
When do you start, like, for the spring? Or
February.
February.
And I have an indoor starting facility.
We've had just as much success with painter's plastic and making some hot boxes. Just recycled wood. Yeah, we've been able to do that all winter long
In the
with
winter, you can
with
even take
spinach.
Big.
You can take
A
like
4x4
and plant.
Yeah.
Whoa.
or whatever you have available.
And we have donation station plots at the community garden.
Here's a lot of the winter crops right here,
I would be in charge of, like, getting
which I've just been working on getting it thin. I'm not done. I've got a couple more flats to thin. The lettuce and arugula are in here right now. So this is the little start house for starting veggies in the summer and fall. So if you're going to do this in any scale, you need a place to start seedlings. And you notice it's shaded up there so it can get too hot, and it's open.
Yeah.
Or have some kind of ventilation. The summer starts.
Just a
Panelized.
big,
It's only for
big
summer.
plastic, heavy-duty material.
Sheets.
But there's no way to temperature control it. We've got a couple of vents, but it stays 130 degrees in there. So that's why we're trying to move to the hoop house, so we can open it up and,
You can
and
open
control
up.
the temperature a little better. This is beautiful.
Everything I've done here, I've just kind of conjured together myself. I don't have any manufactured hoop houses or greenhouses or panelized anything. I've made a lot of mistakes, and you will see some of them.
They wanted to create this look, and that's what it was.
These are things we're going to plant today, so you can run this wheelbarrow out. We're just going to demonstrate planting. I don't know how much.
Yeah.
Don't worry, you don't have to stay all night.
Wow.
Cassie and I brought her hand.
I like
Our prep room,
Okay.
when vegetables are cut in the field and you have to prepare them for market, and this is where it's done. And we have all the basics here: refrigeration, water, and a counter, and containers. We built this, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, before I was doing it on a picnic bench.
Oh my.
I was quite overdue for a better facility.
Washer,
This is a spinner.
spinner,
When you make a solid mix, this
Oh, that's
is,
a big spinner.
it's a big one.
well, they come out bigger than this.
Yeah, okay.
You put it in there, and you turn it, and the water comes out the spout. So you can dry down your solid
Yeah.
mix. This is pretty much a one-man room. 2 people come and try to work in here, and it's too crowded.
Hard.
I'm out here till 9 to 10 in the evening on market days.
I bet.
Like on the Friday before the
Friday
market?
before.
Yeah.
I gotta get the picking just before dark.
Yeah.
So all the baskets I pick into laundry baskets.
Oh,
Yeah.
good idea.
Yeah.
And the greens, and it's all stacked up out there, and just process one at a time till I'm done.
And you sell heads and mixed
Heads and
bags.
mix, but more heads than mix.
Okay.
The heads I pick in the morning,
Friday
You mean Saturday morning?
Or
Saturday morning,
Oh, wow.
What time do you get up on Saturday?
5 o'clock. I have a headlight.
Wait, that's
a hat
quick.
with a headlight.
Yeah.
It works quite well, really. It's fun being out there, especially like moonlit mornings,
Yeah.
moonlit nights. I think the lettuce has a special flavor if it's picked in the moonlight.
Yeah. I'm sure it does.
Those bags of mix are really your
The-
triumph. I think they're great.
The head lettuce is my main item, not the mix. Head lettuce is my number one.
Well, you are the person who consistently has it.
Well,
you
that's
know.
how you get to be number one, by being consistent with
That's
it.
right, that's right. That's right. A lot of the other people that sell lettuce.
They start out with it in the spring, then they give up.
consistent.
Well, it's harder to
It's
grow
hard
in
in
the
the
summer.
Your small one is good for a one-person family. It's just perfect.
Well, I
It
have
does.
various sizes to fit everybody. If you're serious about gardening, the first thing you need to do is I started out with electric, and that worked for a few years, and then they decided that electric didn't bother them a bit, and they walked right through the wire. Just walk through it, or maybe they ran through it.
Does your dog have any effect? I had German Shepherds for a long time, and when we had those, we didn't have any fear.
Well, if you had a really aggressive dog that will sit out in the garden and stay awake all night, and every time it hears anything, it'll run out and bark, that might work. Possible a really good dog could do the job. But that one is not a really good dog. We have a system of raised beds, narrow cement slabs when it's on a hillside to kind of make a level growing surface so it has the terrace effect. All of this space, all of my beds like this are hand worked. I don't use a tiller. A tiller could be used. I have a tractor for bigger fields. Tillers are not really good for the soil. So I think this is better for the soil, but it's more work. We make compost from various sources. A lot of horse manure and vegetable scraps all get made into compost, and that all goes on these beds.
Black fabric help heat it up.
It's called a compost blanket. It keeps it from drying out, and yes, helps heat it up. Although it can get too dry under there. So with hot, dry weather, I really need to take the compost blanket off so it can get rained on. So it just sheds the water. So it has its disadvantage. In the winter, it's good because it does keep it warm.
How do you water that?
We have a very inadequate water system. We don't have drip irrigation. We don't have a good water supply. It would be nice if I did. Anyway, there you see barrels.
Yeah.
You see the two white
Oh,
tanks.
wow. You got tanks.
Just collect water from those are two 500-gallon tanks to collect water from the barn roof. To get it out to the garden, I go there with a truck full of 5-gallon buckets and fill the buckets. There's a tap at the bottom of each tank. Fill the buckets, load the truck, drive out to the garden where I need it, and carry the water in. About all I can do is water transplants. Put in transplants, water them. That's about all the water they're going to get from me. Now lettuce will get more water than that.
I was going to say, you cannot possibly not be watering your lettuce and have any to grow.
Well, this year we didn't have to water much.
This year's been pretty great.
It was
as far as
pretty
rain,
good summer this
exactly
year.
what you
You know,
need.
I do carry water out to the lettuce. The lettuce is the top priority. I carry
Yeah.
water to the lettuce if it gets really dry. So far I've gotten by.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen with climate change. If we could start getting major droughts,
Yeah.
I could be hurting. I really do not have a good water source up here. Possibilities of putting a pond, drilling a well, something.
Is your water for the house, is that a cistern or rainwater?
For the house, there's a cistern right there.
Uh-huh.
Gets the water off the roof. And in addition to those two tanks, which collect water from the barn roof, there is an in-ground system that gets the overflow from the tanks. So
Oh,
there's a 1,000-gallon cistern just below the barn there, and there's a submersible pump in it, which pumps water up to the house, and there's a cistern right here, and we actually have the old pitcher pump in the kitchen there
That's great.
to pump water. So we have two 1,000-gallon tanks for household use. There's no water line up here.
wow.
Solar panels there, and this is the battery room. We have battery backup.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
You guys, grid tied battery backup system. That's what this is. And these are the inverters and junction boxes and all that kind of electrical stuff.
And is that your,
We are connected to the grid. So this is a grid tie. Presently, it is producing 1,200 watts right now. 1,200 watts coming in, most of it's going back to the grid. We're not using a lot right now. If Amy turns on the stove or something, you know, then we'll suck it up. But it's just all interconnected, seamless. Electricity is electricity. It doesn't make any difference where it comes from.
Are you getting a bill?
Of course, you always pay a bill. Most of the bill is not generation, but maintenance. You know, I'm using their grid. I'm going to pay for it. I accept that. I don't expect to use their big grid without
Do they call it distribution?
distribution. There's generation, distribution,
Where's your distribution?
service charges, you know, there's 10 different charges on your bill. We pay them all. If we generate a lot more than we use, we could have a negative bill. But then that would just give us credit, and generally over the course of the, averaged over the year, you're not supposed to generate more than you use. If you do that over a prolonged period of time, they might start jumping on you.
Yeah.
interesting.
I have received a threatening letter once.
Wait for what?
We were generating, over a period of a couple months, we had generated more than we used, so we got a threatening letter. But then the winter comes along and we use it up, and, you know, then they forget about it.
Your panel just sort of fits in. I like the way it's situated there.
There's shade cloth and kale, huh? Yep. Nice.
Whoa, it's tough.
I'm just kind of looking at the tomato deal. Look how many lines he has running on that. It just looks
Yeah,
like
well-
a one line PVC pipe.
Success story this year, this material is called Protec. We get it from a company in Quebec. I've used insect barriers before, and they're very cheap and flimsy, and they're lucky to get one season out of them. This is a much more substantial material, of the consistency of a nylon stocking. It comes in different widths. It's pretty costly, but it sure keeps the cabbage worms and the harlequin bugs and the flea beetles out of the cabbage, collard, cauliflower, you know,
I
all
was just going
the...
to ask you that, how often you could use those.
I put them on when I plant it, and I won't take them off till I'm done.
But it only lasts a year.
Oh, this is certainly going to... I've had some of it several years.
Oh, good, good, good.
It better last.
Doesn't bruise the kale?
A little bit. I wish the kale... I got a wider variety, so it wouldn't... Now the kale's pushing up against it. And also keep it over green beans. The first year I've had bean beetle-free green beans.
Whoa.
So mainly it's the green beans, squash plants,
Oh,
squash and cucumbers, keep the cucumber beetles out.
oh, they are the
So you
thing
cover
of existence.
your squash plants too?
Yeah, zucchini, cucumbers
Whoa.
for the cucumber beetles,
With the material.
green beans for bean beetles.
But if you're growing a small garden, you can go and do.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything
I'm
that's
just,
insect prone, plant it in one row and put this stuff over it.
That's a good idea.
So this is another one of my set of raised beds. And over here we have, this is a cultivated field. Over there is butternut squash, which has mostly been harvested and about done for. And this was a cover crop, which has been disked down and is now being incorporated into the soil. And the cover crop I
How
grew
does your
here
soil
was called...
look after all these years of being nice to it?
It's good. It isn't that great.
Can I feel it?
Sure. Dig in.
If you were down in a river valley, it'd be better, right? Up
It
on a
is.
ridge,
This is
it's
inherently poor soil on
Yeah.
the ridge tops.
It's still wet though. It's holding the moisture.
The cover crop I'm growing, and I'm afraid I did not leave a live plant to show you. Maybe there is a live plant. And it's a legume, it's a pea plant, and it gets big and bushy, and it fixes nitrogen, and it makes a nice thick foliage, and then I disc it down.
It's like soybeans.
I've done soybeans, but this works much better. It's much.
Which bean is it?
It's called cowpeas.
Oh, cowpeas. Black-eyed peas.
It's the same as black-eyed peas, really. I've never let it go to peas. I disc it down before, while it's still green.
They're really satisfying to grow.
And they're good.
Because once they start setting, you can use them at any stage. So when they're itty bitty thin pencils, you eat the whole thing like a snap pea.
Okay.
And then when they get big and fat and bulgy, then you can either eat the black-eyed peas green, fresh, while
then
they're
let 'em
soft,
dry.
or you can let them dry. So
When
they're
do you-
really
when can you start eating the pods like you described?
as soon as
When? What time is
Oh, well, it
July,
depends
August?
on, oh no, if you plant them, they're a little hardier than, you can plant them before, like your green beans. So if you
Maybe
plant
April?
those in April or early May,
Okay.
you should have, pods by June, for sure, early June.
Well, for cover crop, I don't plant them. I probably don't plant them until June. So
Right. But,
Yummy.
and if you give them a little bit of support, they stand up and
I
kind
can
of
see
vine
that
up.
they would do that if I let them keep going. They're
Yeah,
getting pretty
and they're-
tall
and they're-
flopping over.
But the flower on them is attractive, and
It is.
the bean is really. I think there's a lot of bang for your buck in them. Honestly, of course, the deer love them.
soil.
Yeah.
Well, it makes a great cover crop. I just love to see the field solid with them. Solid green. It chokes out the weeds, chokes out the annual weeds.
Wouldn't the donkey and the horse like to eat them if they're called cowpeas?
Well, that's probably why they're called cowpeas, because I think cattle farmers plant them like for a fall forage. They probably just let their cattle out on them. In the late summer, fall, when pasture's eaten down, then they have some fresh. I'm sure that's why it's called cowpeas. So it's a very versatile plant. Okay, now I'll tell you my overwinter structure. Generally they're called hoop houses. Around here we call them our tents, because we shaped like a tent. This is the original one I used. I would call it the low tent or the half tent. And it's quite easy to make. This is just conduit, 1-inch conduit. There's a piece of rebar driven in the ground, 5-foot lengths. I have to use a jointer. You could make them higher if you want, although probably you should go with a bigger diameter piece. This is kind of flimsy for any bigger than this. And the ridge bar bolts down on top, and then anchor bar on the side. And this, I'll run this. This will be in this place. The parsley is already here. We plant parsley early because our summer planting of parsley dies out about this time of year, so we need to do parsley. But this planting of parsley will be right here under this tent for the winter picking.
Really, your summer planting dies out?
Yeah, it always dies out.
Mine doesn't.
You water?
Huh?
Do you water?
It sure hadn't seen much water.
We start the winter parsley early because we know the summer, spring planting is going to die out and we need parsley now.
Mine's turned this really pretty kind of bronzy yellow.
It just rots off at the base.
Yeah.
I've never had that problem.
Rots off. Well, do you want to go up there and see dead parsley? That's where the old parsley patch is.
Interesting. Yeah, mine.
Okay,
is
the
going
sheet of
good
plastic
now.
goes over it and I have cement blocks I lay down to hold it down. Maybe there's a better way. You could like have a 2x4 with holes in it and drive stakes into the ground. Different ways to do this.
Seems like that seems like a really good way. Every time I try to put a hole in plastic, it ends up ripping off in the wind.
Well, there's another way to do it, and I'll be telling you because I've got pictures of it. So this is what we call the low tent.
Yeah.
This is a pretty simple, quick thing to make. If you just want a little hoop house, you can just do a couple seconds. You can just go 10 feet, and that's it. You can make it as big as you want. And you can buy all these kind of structures, and I have some catalogs sitting on the picnic table where they'll sell you them. Oh. Any kind, any design you want, they'll sell it to you.
Oh, absolutely.
We've been building trellises and running like fencing, like cow fence across the top. That's how we trellis our cucumbers and squash and all that stuff. Then in wintertime, we can just move them to where we want them to go, and then we can cover them in plastic there too. So it creates the same kind of.
So you just.
Yep, just cover the same thing.
I've seen that.
Yeah. So
there's multiple ways to do this.
Yeah.
What's going in that row?
Well, the parsley's already there.
The second row.
There will be arugula, cilantro, green onions, radishes.
And are you doing starts for that, or are you just sowing it directly?
Well, my handout lists each crop in my planting method.
Oh, okay.
These came from starts, the parsley.
Yeah.
Radishes, direct seed. Cilantro can be done either way.
Yeah.
Arugula can be done either way. In fact, I prefer direct seed for cilantro, and I prefer.
It too likes to bolt.
And that's what I did some transplanting of cilantro and direct seeding, and the transplanted bolted first,
Yes. It likes to bolt.
like spinach.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it
But
also
arugula
doesn't like
seems to
heat.
do fine. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh, arugula either way. Cilantro, direct seed. That's all on your handout.
well, I think we've got enough enough of those trellises to get us by. But yeah, you're right. And then we're gonna have that monster coming in.
That's the outhouse.
You're dragging something.
So we had that low tunnel for quite a few years, and I got just tired of walking around like this in there, and I wanted something higher, so I came up with this design. This material all comes from Lowe's. They sell it as a chain link fence material.
Oh.
Just in the garden section of Lowe's. And then
You built it yourself?
this is a little bit bigger diameter pipe. And that is the ground stake. That's driven into the ground, and then the hoop itself is a little bit smaller diameter, so it fits inside of that. I did a very rough, crude bending job myself. You can buy or borrow benders, which would do a whole lot better job, and boy, I wish I'd done that.
Does the stuff catch on it or something?
To get a nice bend. That
A
is
nice
weakened it.
uniform bin would
It's all
be
the creases.
optimal, yeah.
So don't do it that way.
How'd you do it? A hammer and
No, on my tractor, where I could stick it in a certain place in the tractor that would hold it real tight and give it a little bend, and then
Yeah.
push it a little further and give it a little bend. Actually, just two places, I guess. Anyway, it didn't make a very nice job, but it's worked. Make sure you bolt these things together. And that's what holds it down. Okay, I'll tell you my biggest stupid mistake I've made since I've been here. When I first built this thing, I had just some scraps of pipe from the ground posts, and then these went over it, and then the plastic, well, right here, this is called a spring wire. I can show it to you if you really want to see it. You can buy this from the garden supply catalogs, that channel there, and there's a piece of wire that's shaped like a spring, and it wedges in there. So the first year I made these, I had the thing up, but this was not connected to the ground post. We got a big wind one night. It picked up half of the thing and flopped it over this way.
Oh, gosh. Did you cry?
I might have cursed a lot. Or was I stupid to think that would hold down in a wind? So I had two of these up and only half of one blew over. So I was lucky they all didn't blow over.
Yeah.
Anyway, I went back and put in proper ground posts and bolted them together. So that's my tale of what not to do. So the plastic gets taken off every year, then it comes back, and this is usually something I have to call on friends to come and help me. Pull the plastic over this, and then once it's on, you put this wiggle wire, spring wire in there.
Oh, and that holds.
That holds the plastic to the board. I also have a few cement blocks along just to keep it in place before we get the wire on. And it has not blown down since.
And so, what kind of plastic do you use?
Well, heavy duty greenhouse film, they call it. It's 6 mil. They don't have it in the Lowe's. I have some catalog sitting on the picnic table and it tells you where you can order it from. They sell it as greenhouse film. It comes in different lengths and different widths.
And it's only good for one season.
Oh no, I'm up to 3 or 4 years on some of it.
Good.
I think one advantage of taking it off in the summer is it lasts longer.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'll show you another way to do this. Go to the farmer's market, no kale. This is his design. Instead of the tent shape we use, you just
He just uses round hoops.
make a bow all the way over.
With what material?
He used the exact same kind of pipe I did.
Kind?
This Lowe's. I know he got it from Lowe's.
Huh.
So it comes
I
over
wonder
the
how he
bend?
bends it like that.
He has a bender.
There's a pipe
Ah.
Nice, even, smooth bend. But the ingenious thing about this, he didn't. If you look real close, there are ropes. See the ropes, and you can see how the ropes attach. There's a picture missing. There's the one. That's the
Oh,
end.
yeah. Okay.
So it's like,
If you look right at the bottom, you can see there's an eye hook
Yeah.
yeah.
bolted onto the hoop. And the rope goes back and forth over the thing, over the plastic. And then you can see how that holds the plastic on.
Whoa.
And then you can push the plastic up to get it out to vent it. You can push the plastic all the way over for the summer, but the plastic stays on. You just push it back and forth.
What a good idea. Save you a
Yeah,
little.
that's a good idea.
So I think
might
that
last
is probably a better method.
Cassie,
But
we
then-
probably have 200 bungee straps. We,
to start.
But then the plastic would last less,
Well,
right?
I'm not sure.
Unless
If
you like,
it's folded, you know,
If it's
pushed
folded
up
down
there-
in the
Yeah.
folded down in the summer where it isn't getting a lot of light. Now I've already seen one major disadvantage to mine is that there are wear points
where you've
on the
got your
corners
hardware
and
there.
it's tearing there.
Yeah.
And this eliminates that because of the tubes. So up that ridge, the plastic is wearing. So because of that, you know, the plastic might last longer this way.
Yeah, yeah.
But I got my thing built and I'm not going to tear it down now, so I'll live
stuck
with
with
it.
it.
One thing I do like about this is it gives you more headroom.
Yeah.
And the snow sheds better in the winter.
Oh, yeah, I bet it would. Yeah.
It slides off pretty easily.
Does the dirt being on, would dirt being on it in the summer all along be a deteriorating factor or what?
It doesn't really connect with the dirt there.
No, I mean when this guy shoves his back.
Well, it's still just right there. I don't think it's really in the dirt. I wouldn't think it gets much dirt on it.
Wait, Kale, what farm does he have? Or garden?
Deep roots.
Oh, deep roots, okay.
I think this is kind of the standard procedure most guys are doing now. This shows the end.
Yeah.
The end is anchored
And then
with
this
a rope.
goes all the way across?
We're looking at that end right there. That's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Let me hold it.
I asked Kale for these pictures, so he
Yeah.
could show another way of doing it.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's cool.
Well, where is that going? I mean, is it underneath something or is it attached to something?
That's.
Oh.
This is the detail of that end. There's a rope, and part of the rope wraps around several times
Oh,
with
okay,
this bunched
okay.
up plastic.
Okay.
And here's my hoop house in the winter, me picking veggies.
I like how that picture's
You keep a thermostat
Yeah.
in there? Do you keep a thermostat in there? Do you know about what it is typically?
I don't keep a thermostat. That's the big issue for any kind of winter plastic structure is temperature control. It doesn't get too hot. With this design, he can push it up from the sides. With mine, I open up the ends. On sunny days, I have both ends open. With mine, the plastic is just held down on the ends with cement blocks. So I roll the cement blocks and I use big spring clamps to clamp it up.
Yeah.
To open it up, so it's open on either end. One other feature of winter growing, and you can just kind of see that white strip there, and you can see wire hoops if you look real closely. So wire hoops are put over each individual bed, and the floating row cover, which is heavier than that stuff, that's insect barrier.
Right.
Cover?
You can buy floating row covers which come in various heavinesses, temperature. Mine's just kind of the medium. I usually put at least 2 layers on, and that covers the inside on really cold,
cold. when it
cold
gets
days.
colder.
If it's sunny, I take it off and have a cold spell. I put it on. It's take it off, put it on, open the ends, close the ends. You're doing this all winter,
the time, yeah.
all the time.
What about,
But you see, that's the cover off.
And look how beautiful they are.
what about moisture in the winter?
Again, my lack of irrigation here means I'm carrying water in with buckets.
Yeah, but you
So
have to, you
Although-
have to be careful because if you get things too wet, even with it covered,
Well, when you're
Gonna
carrying
cause
it
you-
in with buckets, that's not a problem.
you're
Not overwatering.
no, you're going to cause your ground to freeze and your plants to freeze.
Actually, I don't have to do that too often. Amazingly, amount soaks in from the sides, especially the narrow one. I don't hardly have to water the narrow one at all. And it's on the level,
Oh,
so it just soaks in from the sides.
capillary action.
But this one, the middle bed gets dry.
is there any way you could get a pump going and
Well, of course.
get
Real
water?
farmers have drip irrigation. They have pumps and real farmers.
I mean, you have a electric source. That's not too expensive.
Well, it's something that has not been done yet.
I mean, is it something you considered? And
Oh,
decided not to?
every year when I'm carrying buckets in there, I'm considering it.
the last time I'm carrying buckets.
And then I never get around to doing anything about it.
I
Gotten
think
by
it's
so
time.
far. So that's okay. Now the
Okay.
simplest, cheapest method.
Bye.
Tavi, you were talking about.
Yeah. Bye. Yep. Can't have to go.
So, you aren't going to build a big hoop house or anything. You just got a little garden. You want some protection. So go ahead and plant it. And I have these, what it is, half-inch, three-quarter-inch PVC pipe. Cut it to length, push it in the ground. You can also get metal conduit.
Do you put it on rebar, or is it
No, this is
pushed
just
in the ground?
poked in the ground.
Whoa, really?
Just pokes right in. If the ground's too hard, you could drive a stake in first, open a hole, and then push it in.
Did you say those are 5 feet PVC? Or how?
I don't know, it comes in 10-foot lengths or whatever. You just cut it.
Okay.
I think,
Like 5.
I forget how long these are. You can get metal ones, but then you need a nice pipe bender like Kale has to bend
Yeah.
it with. But this works pretty good. You don't have to worry about bending it. It just bends itself.
Yeah, I wonder how you would bend like conduit like round.
With the pipe bender.
What?
With the pipe bender.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, special tool.
Kale would lend it out.
Wheel on it.
Kale would lend his pipe benders.
Yeah.
I'm sure anybody who wants to use it.
Cool.
Probably there's others around. And then the plastic goes on, and then rocks to hold it down. And you can also, Kale has a smaller version of this with metal pipes with the same eyelet and the same rope going over, just on a small scale. So I'm using rocks. He's using the rope going over it. The rope method's easier because you don't have tons of rocks to haul in and out every year.
Do you process your mix in there? Or do you ever like cut it? No, you probably do it in there. Yeah.
It's all done in there.
Like the first year, just using the plastic, this kind of a method, but using the trellis, where we have cucumbers and stuff grow up this trellis and over, and then in the wintertime, covering that in plastic. We just took simple meat thermometers and put on the inside and on the outside, and what you're talking about, like soil freeze and stuff, the soil temperature inside of those stayed around a 70 degrees.
Whoa.
So like just on the outside, we were looking at 50. You know what I mean? So the weather affected and impacted that tremendously, but inside, it just that sun and permanent, it just kept it, the soil was great in terms of temperature. We didn't have any issues with freezing.
Was the weather pretty stable? That's good for you.
We've done it, well, 3 years ago is when I think it was incredibly cold. And we had lettuce that went all year. So it was a really neat thing.
I use this shade cloth
Use
for
that as a
new
resource,
plantings. As soon as I put new seedlings in the ground, the shade cloth goes over.
New seeds.
And it only stays on maybe 2 weeks until the next planting goes in.
Okay.
Especially since it's as hot as it is right now.
If it cooled off, I would quit using it. But
So wait, so that cools it off, even though it's like black, just because it has holes?
Mesh.
Yeah.
well, it's blocking the sun. The biggest thing it does is reduce the amount of soil loss. Boy, after a bed's been covered with this, and I compared to an uncovered bed, you can really see a difference. How much drier the uncovered is. It just reduces water loss. But you don't want to leave this on real long over lettuce, so the lettuce will not develop color, or if you want head lettuce, it won't make nice heads.
It's like a few weeks.
Well, there's always those really hot snaps through the summer where, you know,
Yeah.
for the next week it's going to be 98 degrees. Or like even now. Yeah. That's
This hot, what it's
yeah, it's
going
weird,
out.
isn't it?
So we put some plants in the ground.
Let's do some work.
Yeah, we'll give you a hand.
Really quick.
The flea beetles.
That's a picking it point itself. It's kind of
But this works perfect.
Are your strawberries June bearing?
I have that with the
Yeah.
plant
Okay.
still.
Yeah, we.
Eat it.
No, they're too pretty.
Oh, definitely.
Yours are still
Up
going.
there, thornless berries, which are very easy to pick. And the
Low bush and high bush, right? You have to. Is that right?
This is just an early planting.
Blueberries.
These are older. They're all about the same kind. Well, there's different varieties, but they're
Yeah.
all high bush.
How late in the season do these produce?
The blackberries?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never seen blackberries that late.
Neither have I.
This kind has been gone for over a month.
So it is
Is
unusual.
this variety or?
My thornless ones will produce up through the end of August,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Start in
In a
July.
good year.
I
all
think
of
you have a
July
heck of a
and
lot
all of
better
August.
variety than I do.
Well, if you want some, I'll be glad to dig some up for you.
Okay.
That's. We want to start this, but at the same time, I'm like so hesitant to do it because I know how much this is. You know, it becomes. Do you have a huge section of that, or like?
Berries?
Yeah. I mean,
That's
this
what
is
you see
this
here.
Is, yeah, this is
About 100-foot row. That's
yeah.
not a lot.
Like, yeah.
We're
Yeah, how many
debating
berry
whether we
bushes
should
do you
expand this or keep those, and seeing how these do. I mean, they have delicious berries.
Truly wonderful.
I think raspberries are my favorite thing on earth, and that's selfishly that's why I'm trying to do berries, is to get to where I know we've got raspberries.
Well,
going
we
all the time.
have raspberries out there. They are always a disappointment.
Really.
They never produce well, and they're all soft and mushy. They're very hard to handle.
Well, they are hard to
Red raspberries.
They are hard to handle.
Yeah, they are. You get a package of them, you got to use them now.
You got to use it my way.
The other ones, like blueberries and blackberries, you can store for a while.
I love raspberries.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
A good
thing,
ripe
actually.
blackberry is not going to last very long either.
Raspberries are the worst. Red raspberries are the worst.
Yeah.
Harvest berries.
Do you have to acidify your soil for your blueberries?
I have. I've bought blueberry fertilizer. It has sulfur. I haven't done it every year, and I haven't tested soil lately, so I'm not sure where we're at.
The wild black raspberries
Test the soil
are
and
great.
see if I need to get more of that fertilizer.
That's
Is that the acidic?
Yeah.
Acidic for blueberries.
coffee bean or coffee or old
Grounds.
coffee grounds.
Yeah,
That's what we're-
from a brewery.
You can get them from
Yeah. That's what we got. We've got a couple coffee shops, and they used to give that
I know people
What do they
doing
do?
that.
For what?
the soil acidity. It changes the
To
soil.
make
So
it more
blueberries
acidic.
are
They're acid.
Wait,
I
for
haven't
blueberry?
tried to do that. I would guess quite a few people growing blueberries around here. Probably pretty much got the
niche.
coffee grounds soaked up.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
So the
Sure.
beds are all prepared. I marked a line. That means there's going to be 2 rows of plants on the one side of the line and 2 rows of plants on the other side of the line.
Okay.
Here is the planting method. Push the hole, push it in. Now the trick to this type of, when you have cells, nice loose cells, cell packs it's easy to get the plants out, but this is a little trickier. And the plants tend to intertwine, so if you just rip it out, you'll tear the next plant out. So you take it out gently.
Whoa.
And then the plant will be about a trowel space apart. And then plant there.
And so you're putting the second
Alternating.
row in between,
Offset.
offset.
So the person planting on this side will put a plant there and there.
Right.
So I need one person working on this side, one person working on that side.
Okay.
And notice, to all apart, I am not doing this.
Right.
I'm not digging a hole. You don't need a hole. You just need to get the plant in the ground.
Yeah.
So you pull it back enough that the plant goes in there. And every plant should have a little pocket
Yes.
for watering. So who's on that side?
Okay.
Will you water soon?
Maybe one person could work out of one side of the plant, one person could work out of the other side of the flat. And the person on that side is going to be more difficult because
Yeah,
the board's in the way.
a tinier person. No, I got it.
Who wants to be here? Pulling out very...
You need to be over here. You're using your line as your divide. You're going to trowel. Well, actually,
That's what I want to ask about
Right there.
tomatoes when it gets spray.
Most things are like transplanting. You just get more reliable. No, how high is the tail? Well, look at this up here. I mean, I just pick the outside. This is the way you can just do a temporary. This is different. Yeah, that would be too high. Over it, and then you have to have a bunch of rocks.
Are you watching the film? Are you watching the film?
No. It's a cat.
Oh, you're taking a film of the cat. Hi, pretty kitty. With lovely life. Is Amy in the house, you know?
Yeah.
I brought some food and she said I could warm it up. But I couldn't find it.
Did you go in?
I just remember she used to make it for potlucks too, sometimes. Look at that. Oh. My dog does that. You have to send that to YouTube.
This is glorious. We drove through this place and we had no idea whether it was wonderful.
awesome. Like, I was there on like a month ago when we were canning. We made cantaloupe preserves and zucchini bread jam, and they were like, I feel like I didn't even have to do. Like, they knew exactly what they were doing. Like, these kids are like, what? Like, one of them is 11, 14, and like 16, but they knew, they just like canned it. Like,
If they get real big, then I'm using a regular hoe where I have to just pound them out.
do you do it in between these?
No.
Oh, really?
Actually, I didn't show you that. Just set it down there.
Shuffle hole.
What is it called?
I don't know if you buy these. I just made it myself. If you want to try this out.
Oh, nice, you made it.
Weeding.
I've seen it, yeah. I've seen something like that. I had like,
They probably sell something like that.
wow.
Yeah,
So
you
all the
can,
lettuce needs to be weeded in between like this.
Yeah,
Nice.
cool.
Who wants to do it?